أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على جميع الأنبياء والمرسلين لا سيما خاتمهم وأفضلهم محمد مصطفى صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم وعلى أهل بيت الطهارة لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين الحجة ابن الحسن أجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك، عليك منا جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعله الله آخر أحر مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. أما بعد، فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه المجيد وقوله الحق: لقد خلقنا الإنسان في أحسن تقويم ثم رددناه أسفل السافلين. آمنا بالله صدق الله العلي العظيم. Please recite a salawat. My elders, dearest brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. In keeping with the structure and the pattern of our nights, tonight I wish to honor and I wish to dedicate my lecture to the mental health professionals in the community. Just by a show of hands, it's an invitation, you don't have to, but just by a show of hands, how many mental health professionals do we have in the audience tonight? So to my fellow mental health professionals in the community, be it therapists, counselors, psychologists, social workers, all those who dedicate their lives to heal the minds and souls of the people in our society, I see you, I hear you, and I'm with you. As a registered psychotherapist, I don't just observe your triumphs and struggles from the outside, but I'm there with you. To carry this sacred responsibility is difficult. The time, the energy, the emotional effort can be overwhelming at times. But there's something that we don't necessarily always talk about in the mental health profession, which you may not know. And that is that when you seek mental health assistance, we mental health professionals are not perfect. We are not completely well put together human beings all the time. No, we're no different than our clients. In fact, what we're doing is we're just holding up a mirror to our clients. The work that we do, it comes at a cost. But because it is a labor of love, and because we believe in humanity, this is why we continue doing what we do. We have our own issues, and I can speak for myself as a mental health professional and a registered psychotherapist. Within my training and even till today, I have to attend mandated personal therapy. Now, what's interesting about that is that, I'll share with you a story. My first therapy session, I walked into my therapist's office, and my therapist was very excited. You're a trainee, we're looking forward to, working together, this, that. I had to slow my therapist down. I said, listen, given everything I've been through in life and everything that I've seen in life, I should have been here a long time ago. But I'm here now, so let's just focus on me and we'll worry about the training stuff after. It comes across as very cliche, but every therapist will tell you, and I will repeat it. Everybody needs therapy. Myself, After having over 100 hours of attended personal therapy in my life, I cannot tell you the benefits that I've experienced, the awareness that has grown inside of me, the things that I have discovered. And it's not that it's something that's going to change myself overnight. No, it took a long time to get to where I got to. But even that, just the awareness alone of myself is something that I'm grateful for to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and of course my therapist. So to every mental health professional, and to all of you, as professionals, we also carry our own wounds. I don't know if you guys remember seeing in the movies or TV shows, you know, when people go for the Alcoholics Anonymous meetings, right? They walk inside, they sit down, they state their name, and then everybody says, "Hi, so-and-so." Well, in front of you all, my name is Muhammad Yasin, and I am a wounded healer. And it is nice to meet each and every one of you. Please recite a salawat. I had an interesting conversation with my brother on the way over here. Tonight's message, I really it is my heart's desire that this message is for the young people. But then he pointed out something to me. He's like, you know, when growing up, anytime a speaker got up and said, "This is for the young people," what was your reaction? I'm like, yeah, you know what? Every time someone got up and said, "I want to talk to the young people," or "This is for the young people," it was always followed by a scolding or something condescending. So yeah, so I realized in the comment, like, Riz, we've become cliches, right? But sincerely, from my heart, to my youngsters, I acknowledge 1,000% that I have no idea what it's like to be a young person in the year 2025. I don't, because I'm not. But what I can tell you, I can promise you two things. Number one, I'm not going to scold you. I'm definitely not going to condescend you. Don't worry about that. But what I can tell you is that I was also young once upon a time in Toronto and growing up. And there are certain things that I wish I had while I was growing up. Because if I had them, then perhaps things might have been different. Now, of course, there's something to be said about the fact that everything that happened in my journey got me to this point. But nevertheless, there are still things and a lot of pain and suffering. Perhaps I could have saved myself had I known what I would like to share with you tonight. Tonight's topic is the virtue of tawakkul, which is trust, which is that trust and reliance in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. An invitation again. Would anybody like to share with me what they believe tawakkul is and how they apply it in their life? Anyone? There's no right or wrong answer, by the way. I'm just curious. Okay, no problem. Tawakkul is a very interesting concept. And again, going back to what I said yesterday and going back to what I said the night before, I want to emphasize this point. These virtues that we are covering are lecture series on themselves. What we're doing here is simply introducing them and introducing them from a perspective. I would encourage you, because these virtues, going back to our original lecture and laying it from the start, the concept of the fitrah becomes the divine blessing and container inside all of us, which holds the 7 virtues that Allah talks about in the Quran, the 7 people that He loves. It's innately part of us. It's not separate from us. And so like going for therapy, you can give yourself spiritual therapy. You don't have to go to a therapist for this one, but you can give yourself spiritual therapy by beginning to discover these virtues inside of yourselves and reading about them more and see, because they are a part of you. And the more you become aware of them, the more enriched and fulfilled one's life can become. Please recite a salawat. So the Quranic foundation for tawakkul that we'll be exploring tonight is actually one of the verses where Allah explicitly expresses His love for the mutawakkilin. It's Surah Al Imran, which is Surah number 3, verse 159. He says, "Thus it is due to mercy from Allah that you deal with them gently, and had you been rough, hard-hearted, they would certainly have dispersed around you. Pardon them, therefore, and ask pardon for them. And take counsel with them in the affair. So when you have decided, then place your trust in Allah, and surely Allah loves those who trust, the mutawakkilin." Please recite the salawat. Now I have to paint some context around this verse. This verse was revealed to the Prophet of Islam after the battle of Uhud. It was specifically revealed to the Prophet of Allah after he was betrayed at the battle of Uhud. For those of us who are not familiar with the battle of Uhud, the battle of Uhud is the second battle in the history of Islam. In the first battle, which was the battle of Badr, the Muslimin defeated the Mushrikeen. They didn't take too kindly to that, so they got their armies together and came to attack the Prophet at the battle of Uhud. Those of you who have been for Hajj or have been for Umrah and have visited the blessed city of Medina al-Munawwara, you perhaps would have visited a mountain, the mountain of Uhud, where Hamza, the uncle of the Prophet, is buried. Hamza was one of the most staunch supporters of Rasulullah. He was martyred in the battle of Uhud. Before Imam al-Hussein became known with the title of Sayyid al-Shuhada, it was Hamza who was known as Sayyid al-Shuhada, which is the master of the martyrs. Now in that battle, because it was taking place on a mountain, the Prophet realized in his strategy in looking at the Mushrikeen army, he realized that if we go head first at the enemy, there is a possibility that the enemy can go around the mountain and surprise attack them from the back. So he placed archers on the mountain to prevent that from happening. What happened is after the martyrdom of Hamza, it seemed that the Muslim army really gained energy and went right full force towards the army of the Mushrikeen. And in doing so, they were on the verge of victory. And when they were on the verge of victory, the subject of war booty came up. Greed took over. And the archers who were standing on the mountain got greedy. And so what they did was, they thought victory was at hand. So they left their position on the mountain. And when they left their position on the mountain, a horse battalion, led by Khalid bin Walid, came around the mountain, attacked the Muslimin from the back, exactly as the Prophet had envisioned, and snatched defeat from the victory. Victory from the jaws of defeat. So cliche. Point is, they were victorious. And in those moments, there was fake news that was going around on the battlefield, that the Prophet had been killed. And as a result, the Muslimin began to abandon the battlefield, leaving the Prophet. The Prophet was left alone. It was only the Prophet, Amir al-Mu'mineen, and one other companion. His name escapes me at the moment. But only the three of them were left to battle the Mushrikeen. So that is the context. This is the context in which the Prophet was betrayed. It wasn't a small betrayal. It was a big betrayal. But imagine, what is Allah telling His Prophet? And again, Allah is talking to His Prophet. This is now after he's returned to Medina, and the people who abandoned him have now come to seek forgiveness. They're embarrassed. They're shameful. They feel guilty. And Allah advises the Prophet. What does He tell them? He says, because it is due from the mercy of Allah, deal with them gently. Don't be harsh with them. And had you been rough and hard-hearted, they will disperse away from you. Forgive them. But not only forgive them, pray for their forgiveness. Sit down and talk to them. Consult with them in the matters going forward. Make a decision, and once you've made a decision, then have tawakkul on Allah. Now, this is the apparent meaning of the verse. What I would like to do with this verse is I would like to take a reflection of this verse and turn the verse back on ourselves. Turn the verse back on ourselves. How? For the times we betray ourselves. For the times we fall into problems, for the times we commit sin, for the times we make mistakes, and all of those. Turn the verse back on ourselves. It's interesting, the concept of tawakkul. For me, the concept of tawakkul growing up was always about when things were happening to me. When difficulty came towards me and I was facing difficulty, it was always, have faith in God. Have faith in God. Have faith in God. Have faith in God. Each and every difficulty, that was the standard line. Have faith in God. Right? But when I messed up, or when I did something, there was no issue of faith in God. It was have faith in the punishment. Because it was coming. And in a time when I was growing up, again, in a time when I was growing up, so cliche, my young people, I'm sorry, but can't help it. In a time when I was growing up, that punishment many times came in the form of a slipper. To the time I got very intimately associated with the ridges on the slipper. You understand? So that I had to have trust in the punishment. But now imagine, when we find ourselves in a situation where we have betrayed ourselves, it doesn't necessarily even have to be sin. It can be bad decisions. It could be toxic cycles. It could be relationships that we're not getting right. It could be any number of things where we betray our true values. That is betrayal, right? So now, as we reflect the verse back on ourselves and our psyches, we now look at our inner Uhud, the battlefield of Uhud that exists within our souls and within our being. The truth is, my beloved souls, we all have a battle of Uhud happening inside of us. We've all had moments where we have betrayed ourselves, betrayed our higher selves. The promises to ourselves that we've broken, the standards we've set for ourselves, but not able to reach or abandoned. The person we were meant to be versus the person we sometimes are. The spiritual practices that we've neglected, the relationships we've damaged through our own choices, the times we've chosen the easy path when we knew what the right path was. Please recite a salawat. And what is the tendency? What is our tendency? The harsh inner voice. That harsh inner voice. That guilt and that shame. Why did you do that? How could you mess up again? You'll never change. You're not spiritual enough, not strong enough, not good enough. Other people can do this, but clearly you can't. Right? And what happens? Exactly what Allah predicts. Exactly what Allah predicts. Our own souls disperse away from ourselves. We become avoidant. We can't face ourselves. We disperse from ourselves. We don't want to face ourselves. We don't want to sit with the pain of betraying ourselves. We lose connection with ourselves. We lose connection with our heart, our own potential, and our own capacity for growth. But what if the mercy Allah taught to the Prophet to show those who disappointed him is the same mercy we need to show those parts of ourselves that have disappointed ourselves? What if the path to authentic tawakkul, real trust in Allah, begins with learning to trust that even our own failures are held in divine mercy? This is the context that can change everything. This verse came down after Uhud, right? So now, let's look at each segment of the verse and apply it to ourselves. Breaking down the divine formula. Number one, it is due from Allah that you are gentle with yourself. When we apply it to ourselves, the gentleness we need towards our own failures doesn't come from pretending they don't matter or minimizing them. It comes from Allah's mercy flowing through ourselves. And remember, let's put things into context here. When we do betray ourselves, the reality of it, it is coming from a place where there are parts of us that are genuinely struggling. Genuinely struggling. Now my question to you is that if there is someone in front of you who is genuinely struggling, right? Even when they make poor decisions, is the answer to be harsh with them? is the answer to reprimand them. You wouldn't do it to others. Why do it to yourself? Had you been rough and hard-hearted, they would have dispersed. When we're harsh with ourselves, when we become our own worst critic, our own harshest judge, what happens? Our soul starts to shut down. Our creativity disperses. Our hope scatters, and our connection even to our own potential begins to dissolve. We literally become estranged from ourselves, disconnected from ourselves. That self which is rooted in the fitrah, that self which is the fitrah which contains the 7 qualities that God loves, which are contained in us, which we've talked about. So we're essentially even disconnecting from the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Therefore, pardon them. This is the toughest one. We need to actively forgive ourselves. When we are struggling, we need to actively forgive ourselves. And not as a one-time event, but as a practice. I forgive you for not being perfect. I forgive you for being human. I forgive you for making that choice that hurt others and yourself. I forgive you for not living up to your own expectations. Sounds counterintuitive. But that forgiveness for ourselves is the necessary first step in healing. Now, I also will qualify that by saying that part of forgiving ourselves is also holding ourselves to account. So in that process of forgiving ourselves, we also have to hold ourselves to account to understand and be aware of what we've done. It's not that we're giving ourselves a free pass. Don't have that impression. No, holding ourselves to account and then forgiving ourselves. We're good at holding ourselves to account, but then after that, we keep beating on ourselves. It's interesting, the nafs of insan, as the Quran talks about, the 3 states of the nafs. The nafs al-amara, the nafs al-lawama, and the nafs al-mutmainna. Right? The nafs al-amara is the state of the soul, that carnal soul, that desires to do evil. So when we've committed an act, or when we've betrayed ourselves, our nafs al-lawama comes up. Lawam comes from lawm. Lawm is blame. Lawam means lots of blaming. The nafs al-lawama is not a good or a bad thing. It's not a good or a bad thing in a manner of speaking. And I'll tell you why. Because blaming ourselves, when blaming ourselves is rooted in guilt, then there is a potential for that blame to move us in the direction towards healing, to move us in the direction towards rectifying ourselves. But when that blame is rooted in shame, then that shame will take us further. The nafs al-lawama is, you would think shaitan is waiting there at the nafs al-amara, which he is. But I would argue that shaitan's favorite place is the nafs al-lawama, because you stand at a threshold. And this is where he just wants to give you a nudge and push you. Yeah, he whispers to you, yeah, you're not good enough. How long are you going to keep trying? You fall into the same pattern again. And so that shame, and he plays on our shame. And when he plays on our shame, that moves us further and further away from any type of healing, which then puts us into a vicious cycle. So even when we try to do good, the whispers are there. You're not going to be able to do it. You're not going to be able to kick that habit. You're not going to be able to stop, being harsh with people. So forgiving yourself, very, very important. Number 4, asking forgiveness for them. This is now the stage where once we are able to forgive ourselves, we can put our hands up and ask the Lord to forgive us. Because even in forgiving ourselves is actually connecting to the God that exists within ourselves. Because God is not separate from us. So we go through the gateway of the God that is inside of us. And once we've forgiven ourselves, then we put our hands up and supplicate to the Creator. Ya Allah, Astaghfirullah Rabbi wa atubu ilayh. Astaghfirullah Rabbi wa atubu ilayh. Astaghfirullah Rabbi wa atubu ilayh. Number 5, and consult them in the affairs. Instead of shutting down parts of us that have failed, we learn to have compassionate conversations with ourselves. Once we have traversed the station of forgiveness, we then look at ourselves. We take stock with ourselves. We look at ourselves. We see, okay, this is what happened, this is how it went. Yesterday we talked about process. This is actually process from the Quran. This is Quranic process. We look at ourselves and we see the bigger picture. We see with clarity and consult ourselves, that God inside of ourselves, that voice, that conscience, that fitra, that taqwa, that sabr, all of it. And what do? We make decisions. That then allows us to make decisions from a place of clarity, from a place of understanding, from a place of compassion, from a place of mercy, connected to that divine self inside of us. We make that decision, and then, after that, tawakkalna ala Allah. Then we put our trust in God. And once we've completed that internal process, then we put trust in God. We put trust in God, and when you do that, what does Allah tell you? You've been through this process that He's prescribed for you. What does Allah tell you? Surely I love you. I love you because you've trusted me. I started the process. I was with you in the beginning, and by my hand, I gently guided you through the process that I prescribed for you. Each step of the way, I took you. I took you. I took you. And now that you've been through this process, I love you. I love you because you trust me. I will hold you. I will heal you. I will take you forward. Please recite a salawat. I want to touch on this very briefly because time is short, and that is when we talk about tawakkul from a psychological perspective, it's important to note two things: that the misunderstanding of tawakkul, and the misunderstanding of tawakkul can take us to two extremes. One extreme can be that of an unhealthy dependency on Allah. Yes, I said it. An unhealthy dependency on Allah, because it is a thing. Unhealthy dependency on Allah. What does that mean? That means that we just sit with our arms folded. I'm not going to do anything. Allah, I trust you. You got this, man. Right? That is an unhealthy dependence on Allah. The other extreme is where, you know what, I'm going to play God today. I'm going to play God. I control all the variables, and I'm just hyper vigilant and invested. Everything's in my hands. I'll just keep going, keep going, keep going. And you dig and dig and dig until you're in a hole so deep you can't fall out of it. So these are the two extremes. What we would like to do is move towards the center. One is an issue of control. As we say, control issues. Someone who has control issues. They are essentially negating God's existence without realizing it and taking on the role of God for themselves. And on the other hand, they're negating their own existence. Right? There's a famous story attributed to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I've heard it all through my childhood, and I'm sure all of you have heard it at least once. Right? Man comes to the mosque in Medina. It's prayer time. It's prayer time, and he's got his camel. So he just parks his camel and is about to head in for prayer when he comes across Rasulullah. Rasulullah says to him, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I'm going to pray." He's like, "Well, what about your camel?" He's like, "Oh, I'm making tawakkul on Allah." Rasulullah says, "Brother, tie your camel. Tie your camel and then have tawakkul on Allah. Tie your camel and then have tawakkul on Allah." So this is what? This is maximum effort and total surrender. We are responsible for giving our maximum effort. Now, I also want to say maximum effort is an individual thing. It will differ from individual to individual. Some people's maximum effort might look like this, some people's maximum effort. As long as you as an individual can look in the mirror or can sit on your sajjad and look at Allah and say that I gave my maximum effort, that's it. That's all we're responsible for. That's it. After that, it is surrender. We do not control outcomes. We were never created to control outcomes. Our only responsibility is to give maximum effort. The outcomes are all in Allah's hands. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells you, go from point A to point B, right? Our only responsibility is to make the effort to go from point A to point B. Whether we reach point B or not, it's not in our hands. Absolutely not in our hands. He decides what the outcomes are. That is reserved only for Him. So in looking at these two extremes, it's important that we've tried to find balance. When things get out of balance, it becomes a situation where you become controlling. So examples are, if I just work harder, plan better, worry more intensely, I can guarantee the results I want. Trusting Allah means I'm being lazy. Real faith requires me to manage everything. If something goes wrong, it's because I didn't try hard enough. Right? And on the other side of it, if Allah wills it, it'll happen. I don't need to do anything. Sounds really nice. Making plans shows a lack of faith. Wanting to improve my situation means I don't accept His decree. Wanting to improve my situation means I don't accept His decree. Right? When you say it out loud, the thing is, we all subconsciously on a level struggle with this. But when you say it out loud, you see how ridiculous it sounds. Right? Tonight, our case study is tied in with our eulogy. Tonight, we are going to look at the story of someone who is famous in the Chronicles of Karbala. But we look at him for a we commemorate him for a very different reason. But tonight, we're going to look at him through another lens. Please recite a salawat. His name is Hur. Hur ibn Yazid al-Riyahi. Hur was one of the commander of the Yazidi forces, the Shami forces. Imam al-Hussein, on his way towards Kufa, is met by Hur. Hur, with his men, have taken to the desert and they are very, very thirsty. Very, very thirsty. The Imam orders his companions and family to give them water. Look at the irony. He orders them to give them water. Not only does he order them to give them water, gives water to their horses as well too. A conversation ensues between Hur and Imam al-Hussein. Hur conveys his orders to Imam al-Hussein and says, look, I cannot allow you to proceed in the direction that you're going. I have been charged to take you in the direction that I have been charged with. A conversation ensues between the two of them, and Imam has no choice but to concede to Hur. And by this point, it is Hur who basically leads them to the land of Karbala. Right? So when they get to the land of Karbala, and once the conversation completes with Hur, the Imam is not happy with Hur. Let's also be clear about that too, because Imam is a free man. And to be then taken captive like that and moved to the land of Karbala, he was not happy with Hur, right? So they get to Karbala, and now we look at Hur. Now normally, when we look at Hur, the narrative, particular narrative and lens that we look at Hur is the one who was forgiven. The famous story is that one who achieved redemption, and a blessed redemption at that too, at the hands of Imam Hussein, right? But we're going to look at it from a different lens. We're going to look at Hur's process. We're going to look at Hur's process and how it led to tawakkul in Allah, and how that tawakkul drove him to go to Imam al-Hussein and seek his forgiveness and ultimately end up with Imam's forgiveness, his blessings, and achieving martyrdom. So let's imagine what Hur's process must have been like, right? He gets to Karbala. He never wanted to kill Imam Hussein. He was not in favor of killing Imam Hussein. So imagine what his process must have been like. Now he realizes that, okay, you know what? My actions have directly led to the day of Ashura. It's the day of Ashura, or the night of Ashura, or the morning, whichever. My actions have directly led to this situation. Directly led to this situation. Right? Process number one, he could have been harsh with himself. He could have been harsh with himself. But perhaps he said to himself, you know what? My intention was never to kill the Imam. My intention was never to kill the Imam. It was not part of the plan. So he was gentle with himself. Then, perhaps he thought to himself, okay, what can I do? What can I do? It says, the stories say that Hur was walking around as if he was choosing between heaven and hell. This was his state on that day. And perhaps he made a decision that, you know what, I'm going to move towards Imam. So what does he do? He says, okay, I'm going to make this right. And in moving through the process of making it right, he forgives himself. Says, you know what, I've done this. This was not part of the plan. Perhaps I'm going to do what I can do to make it right. So he forgives himself. He forgives himself, perhaps raises his hands to Allah and says, Allah, forgive me and guide me now. I want to do the right thing. Guide me to do the right thing. He looks in his heart and he consults himself. Now this point is important here. With everything that's going on in the world today, I want to touch on this. With everything that's going on in the world today, we feel helpless. We feel very, very, very helpless, right? What can we do, right? Every time people ask me this question, what can we do? What can we do? What can we do? I don't have the answer. I don't have the answer. What I can tell you is this. Number one, we can ill afford to do nothing. Let's be clear on that. We can ill afford to do nothing. And number two, it's up to us as individuals and up to us in our families, in our communities, to decide what to do. And even when we decide what to do, it should not come from all of us. It should not come from another, oh, you're not doing enough, or you're doing nothing, or you're doing too much. No. Everyone has the right to decide in these moments we find ourselves in, to do what they're capable of doing. In the situation of Hur, after consulting with himself, and after looking with himself, his decision was, because he must have said to himself in his process, I'm not going to change the Yazidi army. There's no way I'm going to change them. I'm not going to be able to change them, right? And as a result, he decided, this is my next course of action. Similarly today, is one man going to bring down genocidal regimes? Is one man going to bring down systemic abuse? Is one man going to bring down the systems that we find ourselves entrenched in? No. It can start with one man though. Hur's decision was, I am going to leave Yazid's army and I'm going to join Imam Hussein. So he makes his decision. And when he makes his decision, he makes tawakkul on Allah and ends up at the door of Imam Hussein. What does Imam Hussein do? He falls. He ties his, some of the reports say he ties his hands. Some of the reports say he ties his hands and falls at the feet of Imam. Imam lifts him up gently, kisses him on the forehead. Welcome, Hur. You are my guest. You are my guest. I don't have anything to give you in the way of being my guest, but welcome to my camp. So we all have that Hur moment that we must face. It can come via however we see fit to carry out that Hur moment. But each of us has a decision to make. And like I said, we can ill afford to not do anything about it. We have to do something. The desert sun beats down on Karbala. The 10th of Muharram had dawned. Swords were drawn, lines were marked, and the sky itself seemed to hesitate. Among the commanders of the enemy stood a man trembling. His hands fidgeted. His lips murmured verses no one could hear. His name was Hur. Once a respected general in the army of Kufa, the man who had blocked Hussein's caravan from returning to Medina or to Kufa, the man who had led them to Karbala. And now the weight of that choice was crushing him. I see myself between paradise and hell. By God, I will not choose anything but paradise, even if I am cut to pieces and burned. He could take it no longer. He turned to his horse, tied his sword tightly, galloped across the burning plain toward the camp that he once cornered. His heart raced faster than a steed. Dust rose behind him. Cries erupted in the enemy ranks. Hur has betrayed us. Hur has abandoned us. And as he neared the tents of the Ahlul Bayt, he threw down his weapon, dismounted, and called out, "O Hussein, I am the one who brought you here. I gave you no water. I closed every door of escape. Is there forgiveness for someone like me?" Imam al-Hussein looked at him. This once commanding figure, now a broken man. He stepped forward, embraced him and said, "Yes, Hur, you are free as your mother named you. Free man in this world and free man in the next." Hur wept. Tears soaked his beard. He had chained the caravan, but now his heart had broken those very chains. He turned to the Imam. "Let me go first. I was the first to wound you. Let me be the first to protect you." Imam al-Hussein nodded, and so Hur rode forth, no longer the general of Yazid, but the servant of Imam al-Hussein. He fought with a fire unmatched. Witnesses say he fought with the rage of 1,000 regrets and the hope of one forgiven soul. He struck down many of the enemy soldiers until he was surrounded. At last, he fell with multiple wounds. Imam al-Hussein rushed to his side. He knelt beside him, lifted his head, and placed it in his lap. "O Hur," he whispered, "you are free now, O night of repentance." The desert bore witness. The enemy had lost a commander, but the heavens had gained a star. Ala la'natullahi ala al-qawm al-zalimin. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un.